Hello everyone, thanks for dropping by. By this time next week, E3 will be well underway and EA will have officially launched their new game, Battlefield Hardline. The reason I'm doing this video is I might have had a little tiny little bit of input in the creation of this game that Visceral is working on. The reason is, several weeks ago I typed up a letter and I sent one copy to EA's CEO and another copy to the chairman of the board of Activision. I didn't send a copy to Activision's CEO, as Kotick's a little twat and the way he treated the PC gaming community with instructing Infinity Ward to change Modern Warfare 2 to peer-to-peer was, to me, a grave sin, and I didn't think he deserved to have a copy of the letter. So I addressed it to the first person below the Activision food chain, which was the chairman of the board. Anyway, in my letter I told them I'm a PC gamer and I play EVE Online, as some of you know, and I also included that I play the game All Points Bulletin Reloaded, and I incorporated some ideas about it. I explained that APB Reloaded is a third-person shooter which for immersion isn't all that good for a shooter game, whereas a first-person shooter game you're actually inside the game itself, you're inside the map, and it's more immersive as you become part of the game yourself, even though it's from a screen. And I explained a couple of game modes which could be incorporated into a cops versus criminals game, as in APB, that might be helpful. It seems that they've taken notice of what I said. If I did contribute some via the letter, and the letter went down the food chain to the developers. Anyway, in the trailer that you've seen, the 7 minutes one for Hardline, you'll see that it's a bank job, one of the game modes. Well, I explained from the movie Heat that could be a good idea, in that the criminals rob the bank, get the money, and the cops have a response time and they have to stop them getting out the bank, into the cars and away. Now, remember in Heat the famous bank raid, the highlight gunfight of the movie was the street-wide gunfight? That is how I envisaged a first-person shooter game as a cop versus criminals element could work. The other game idea I had was, in APB you get to drive the car even though it's by remote control, like a little radio control car, and your teammates in your team can get in the car with you, then sit on the windsill and shoot at the pursuing cops if you're playing as a criminal. Now, I mentioned the coding for getting it inside the vehicle is the same as in Battlefield, and it'd be, instead of having tanks and armoured carriers and this, that and the other, just civilian cars, and as the players get in, they could, on a first-person shooter mode, they could get out and shoot back. As you know, you can fire the gun behind you on Battlefield 4 if somebody's driving. I'll have to see what brings up at E3, the proper release and trailer of this game, but as it is, it looks like two of my ideas have been incorporated into it. Whether I'll buy this game depends essentially for me on three things. the map size, the team size, and the map itself. With the map size, how big is this city going to be if it's an urban area? If it's as big as the city in All Points Bulletin, then all well and good, because that's a decent size map and it gives a feeling of you being in a city because of the scale. Even better would be Grand Theft Auto size cities. Which brings to the team size. If it's going to be like All Points Bulletin, then 50 versus 50 as in that game is a must. Better still 64-64. But if it's going to be just 32 versus 32, then I can't see that the map is going to be all that big. It'll be about the same size as Siege of Shanghai, which gives the impression you could go somewhere other than inside the dedicated playing area, because if you've seen the overhead of Battlefield 4 maps, the map is that big, but the playing area is only that big, even though it's a lot better, infinitely better than the tiny little maps for Call of Duty. And the third most important thing is, if it's an urban map, is it gonna be a ghost town like in Siege of Shanghai and Gulf of Oman, or is it gonna have AI characters like in APB and more specifically in Grand Theft Auto? If it has got AI characters, the coding could be worked that if a civilian accidentally gets shot during an exchange of gunfire between cops and the criminals, then instead of it like in Battlefield 4 you get 10 points to eliminate a character, killing a civilian will deduct 10 points from the team total. So you can't just go on a massacre like it was in the airport scene of Modern Warfare 2 in the single player campaign. Otherwise, at the end of the match, your team will have 0 points or minus whatever points. That will make the game just ridiculous. Plus, cops versus criminals in a ghost town is equally ridiculous because it doesn't have the feeling of a living city like you get in APB and in Grand Theft Auto. Another thing I'm puzzled about is this Hardline game going to be for consoles and ported to the PC. The new generation consoles can't run 60 frames per second at 1080p, but a decent... Bring that up, come on, thank you. As you know, I don't like the screensaver going off when I'm doing these video monologues. As I was saying, the new consoles can't handle 1080p at 60 frames per second. They can only handle 720 because even now the console's electronics are getting antiquated. Or will it be developed for the PC to make use of all the power of the gaming PC has and ported down to the consoles? Or are they going to go for the make more money as much as they can and then just port it to the PC as an afterthought? That is what we're going to have to wait and find out at E3 next week. Another thing I'm puzzled about, November 2014 is the release date for this. Is it 2014? Or is it 16 next year? I think it's 2014. I'll have to check up on that. But for now, just say that it's November 2014, that's this year, that's about 5 months from now. Are the Battlefield 4 servers going to be switched off to force people to leave Battlefield 4 to play this game, because EA doesn't want you playing an old game when they want to sell a new game to you? So as you can only access Battlefield 4 through Origin, they could switch off the Origin link and then just blank us out of a Battlefield 4 like Sony have done with Gran Turismo 5 and force you to play this new game. That's also some of what we'll have to find out next week at E3. On good news, I've purchased the Action Apostrophe game recording software, and I did a 3/4 of a match, i.e. the match had already started yesterday, and there was no stutter, no locking up like it did with the trial version. So all well and good. I can now record Battlefield 4 and post it to my channel, so I can finally show you how rubbish I am at playing Battlefield 4, and I can also do some more even line gameplay. But as it is, I just wanted to do a video about this new game, Battlefield Hardline, and maybe the ideas that I see as a first-person shooter cops versus robbers game becomes reality. I don't particularly like the desert town element with, I think it's a load of loot that they gotta collect or defend or wherever, because that just has elements of Silk Road and other Battlefield 4 desert landscapes, in that they don't have to design a city. But if the urban area is like it is in APB and they switch the Battlefield 4 servers off, then for my first person shooter game fix, I seriously consider getting Battlefield what's the name? You know the name of this game. What else was I going to say? No, I can't think of anything more. My mind's gone. As I said, we're going to have to see what the official launch of this game is like, but if it's more like Battlefield 4 with civilians and cops versus criminals, then I might not get it. But if it's how I envisage a first-person shooter game, i.e. all points bulletin, but from a first-person's perspective instead of a third-person's perspective. Another thing that, I know what I'm going to say. The all points bulletin, you can customize the characters with tattoos, different clothes, etc., etc. Well, apparently, according to the leaked trailer for this new Battlefield game, you can do that as well, but from what I've seen, not on the same scale. But as I said, we're going to have to wait to see next week what EA reveals at the press launch on the 9th. I'll be tucked up in bed, so I'll have to wait till the recording, but hopefully it's going to be totally different from the glut of modern warfare shooters that we're all having to put up with at the moment. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say for this. I'll probably think of someone else to say when I'm uploading this, but that'll have to do for some other day. So, you know the routine, like, dislike, wherever, all up to you. So until the next time, bye.